You good too, Brittany? Yep. All right. We'll go ahead and get started and bring this meeting to order. Are you ready too, Jerry? All right. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the December 2nd, 2019. Never mind. It is December 16th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. Sorry for the late start, a few technical difficulties. First item on the agenda is roll call. Note that Kathy and Sunny are gone and that Lloyd is here from the board. Okay. First item on the agenda is the approval of the December 2nd, 2019 minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes as written? Concerns?
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of the December 2nd minutes. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 2 is approval of the agenda. Today's agenda consists of items 3 through 7 on the consent agenda. Item 8 is a construction permit, followed by normal business 9 through 13th on the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, but did you say 3 through 7 was on the consent? Because I think it's 3 through 6.
3 through 6. Thank you for the correction. Items 3 through 6 on the consent agenda. Item 7 is a normal business item, followed by number 8, construction permit agenda, followed by 9 through 13.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion on today's agenda. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Brings us to the consent agenda. Brittany, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Good morning, Brittany Molitor. The consent agenda. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by a planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item number 3, road name change, Pennington County, to rename a 50-foot wide platted right-of-way that provides access to property located in Section 10, from Gypsy Road to Heather Lane. Staff recommends approval of road name change from Gypsy Road to Heather Lane. Item number 4 is Plan Unit Development Review PU 0607 for Rapid City MHP LLC, aka Cimarron Mobile Home Park, to review a plan unit development to allow a mobile home park. Staff is recommending to continue the review of Plan Unit Development PU 0607 to no later than the January 13th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting with one condition. Item number 5 is mining permit MP 1904 for Dakota Stone Mining and Stone Supply, James Dean, to drill and blast for production of mica schist for landscape rock to be hauled off-site. Staff is recommending approval of mining permit MP 1904 with 9 conditions. And item number 6 is minor plat MPL 1943 for Battle Creek Fire District to subdivide and create lots J and K of Rushmore Ranch Estates. Staff is recommending approval of minor plat MPL 1943 with 4 conditions.
Thank you. Are there any items that staff wishes to pull from the agenda?
No.
Are there any items that the membership wishes to pull from the agenda? Okay. For those folks in the audience, items 3 through 6 are on the consent agenda. We will vote on all of those items in one vote. Are there any of those items that that anybody in the audience wishes to have separate consideration and be heard separately? Okay. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda items 3 through 6.
I move approval of consent agenda items 3 through 6.
I second.
Motion and second. Further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Brings us to item number 7.
Item number 7 is Plan Unit Development Review PU 0105 to review an existing plan unit development. In 2001, William Anderson requested a rezone of a 40-acre parcel into a mixed-use plan unit development. The approved plan unit development allowed residential and neighborhood commercial uses. The PU 0105 was approved to allow 51 dwelling units and a maximum of 10 acres of neighborhood commercial. PU 0105 was approved by the Board of Commissioners on January 2nd, 2002, with 10 conditions. The PU 0105 rezoned a single 40-acre lot from General Agriculture District to Plan Unit Development District. Over time, however, the property was subdivided into 3 separate lots. PU 0105 has not been reviewed or amended since approval in 2002. The existing uses on the subject properties within PU 0105 are a mix of residential and commercial. This lot has not been developed as required under the conditions of approval of the plan unit development, and the subject properties are now located within the plating jurisdiction of the city of Rapid City. In April of 2019, staff did receive a complaint from a neighbor relative to bright lights located at Depot Storage, which is on the utmost north corner of the subject property. An official complaint was submitted, therefore this complaint triggered the review of this plan unit development. In 2001, Tract 1, which is where the storage units are located, was created through the city of Box Elder, as at the time that property was in the city of Box Elder's plating jurisdiction. In 2014, Tract 2, that you can see is that middle parcel there, was platted through the city of Rapid City, as that was located within the city of Rapid City's plating jurisdiction. The remaining balance is the southernmost portion, is just the remaining balance and has been developed. The lot contains a 40 by 60 pole barn with living quarters. There is a building permit for the pole barn. However, there is not a building permit for the living quarters inside of the pole barn. And there was an on-site wastewater treatment system that was approved and installed on this lot. Staff has attempted to contact all 3 of these landowners to amend this plan unit development and bring it current with the uses and future uses of the subject property while addressing the concerns with the lights at the depot storage. Staff has spoken with the landowners within the plan unit development. One of the applicant does not intend to make the required changes to bring this plan unit development into compliance. Staff does believe that this has not been brought into compliance with the original intent of the plan unit development, and therefore feels that this district is not an appropriate zoning district for this area because it has not been developed in accordance with its original PUD. Staff does feel that these properties should be rezoned to a zoning district in harmony with the surrounding land uses and how the current property is being utilized. And the current uses that are existing under this plan unit development would become legal non-conforming uses. So staff is seeking direction from the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners. And because staff does recommend that these be rezoned from plan unit development to suburban residential district and limited agriculture district to conform with surrounding property uses. And this will require an application for rezone and further public hearings.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
I thought that earlier you had said there were some changes in your recommendation, or was that not pertaining to this?
It was, as far as this, because the plan unit development has not been established as it was proposed, staff is looking for direction from the Planning Commission and Board of Directors on how to proceed. The struggle with the plan unit development is if the conditions are not being met, the zoning district is a plan unit development. So what does that mean? The other problem with this is this requires any major amendment to a plan unit development requires signatures from all 3 property owners, and then you have 3 different property owners. And so if you don't get all of the signatures from all 3 of them, then the other 2, it makes it difficult to make any changes to the other 2 properties. The property with the single wide mobile home does not have a building permit for that single wide mobile home. And then there is not a building permit for the living quarters within the pole barn. The storage units have applied and received their building permits for all the structures that are on that property. That property is actually in compliance with the PUD because it does meet that neighborhood commercial definition, and it's under the 10-acre lot size.
Or, may I ask one
Go
more
ahead.
question? Are the three owners talking to one another, do you know, or not?
I do not know, there was a previous staff, that was working on this. I do know I have met, with the property owner in the center, that
Okay,
gentleman
so you
before.
don't know if the three of them are together?
It
on
is
a
my
plan.
understanding from some of the notes that were in the file that they are not in, they are in contact, but they're not in agreement on how to move forward.
Thank you.
Further questions for staff?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So first thing I'd like to know is the complaint. Are they able to rectify the issue for the complaint, or is having some of this hold up making it where even the complaint can't even get rectified?
That's part of it, and I think that staff with working with the two property owners, with the complainant and the storage, is probably the best action moving forward. I don't think the rezone will change the uses on the property because they'd be legal non-conforming, so that would probably be more addressed better through our ordinance enforcement and staff working with the property owners.
So that should still be able to be clarified, get fixed up.
Yes.
Okay, that was probably gonna be that's the biggest concern is, okay, if there's a problem, we can't do anything on the properties because it's not up to standards, then how are we gonna move forward with that? But it sounds like we can at least get that portion of the complaint addressed and help those individuals out.
Let's go to Michelle first and then come back to you.
Michelle Hoffman, State's Attorney's Office. I'd like to clarify a little bit of the issue. In this instance, we have a plan unit development district as a zoning district, and that's the difficulty here in terms of trying to enforce the conditions. It's zoned PUD. The fact that they failed to comply with the conditions, what do we do with that outside of trying to perhaps bring a violation for public nuisance if they fail to address the issue with the lighting? So there's PUD as a district. There's also the potential to have a plan unit development simply as a special permitting process, which essentially would allow us to accomplish the same flexibility. And this is something that's going to be relevant in discussions on Wednesday dealing with the comprehensive plan. I think everyone wants to have flexibility when it comes to land use, but I think what we're seeing is we don't want PUDs as zoning districts. We like to see them basically be a special permit, which would allow a plan unit development under conditions set forth in ordinance. And in that sense, then, just like the CUP, if conditions are not met, then we have greater enforcement options. But once you've rezoned it, we've got a zoning district now that's not in compliance with the conditions that were set forth, such as 51 dwelling units, which they couldn't meet if they wanted to, because now I think there's water issues and they're not allowing any hookups. So that's kind of direction we're going to go. But we thought we wanted your direction in terms of potentially rezoning, and thought it was a perfect example in the discussion with PUD districting at the comprehensive level.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Jim.
This question was sort of asked. The owners, the only thing we know about the owners is one guy says, I'm not going to do anything, and we haven't heard from the other two, so we don't know. There's been no communication with these people other than the statement made by the one man or one owner?
No, staff has been in contact with the other ones. They would like to move forward and do a major amendment and amend it to what the existing land uses are. However, when you look at our ordinance under 213 for a plan unit development, none of the uses, maybe with the exception of the storage units, are meeting what a plan unit development is intended for. The uses that are on the property now are better met under a limited agriculture district or a suburban residential district. And that's in harmony with how land use is being utilized in the area.
But the owners don't object to that notion, that possibility?
Well, if,
Correct.
they wanted to change a major amendment that would allow them to use their property how they're using it now. Well, they could do that by rezoning it also. Any future subdivision in that property, unless they can secure a different water source, is unlikely, as it has to be platted through the city of Rapid City.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead,
So it
Sandy.
sounds to me like we need to get it rezoned, then do a plan development. I call it an overlay on the existing zoning. Is that correct?
Well, in this instance, we probably wouldn't be looking at an overlay because the reality is
Okay.
PUDs are for residential, the purpose of PUDs under our ordinance is for residential developments, and that's not a possibility here. But they would be able to continue their current use because it would be grandfathered in. But you are correct, moving forward, say with other plan unit developments, we really would prefer not to do a zoning change, but do an overlay.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's good.
So my question is in regards to the answer to Jim's question, and I guess my confusion. So we have talked to all three landowners.
I personally have not, the previous director had. There's notes in the file and some
Okay.
emails.
And they're three separate owners.
Correct.
Is one of the owners the original PUD
Yes,
applicant?
yes, the gentleman to the south.
Okay. If all three owners, so they were agreeable to the major planned unit development change, are they all three agreeable to the rezoning of their property to allow them to continue the use that they have yet fit in one of our current zoning classifications?
To my knowledge, only two of them, the storage unit and Mr. Janice, the one that's in the middle, had responded to moving forward with anything. The other gentleman, the previous director had struggled getting a hold of him and had some returned mail. We didn't specifically talk to the other two regarding the rezone. I know that they were in favor of doing the major amendment to accomplish what they are accomplishing on their property right now.
Okay. Just so my mind is clear, the pole barn to the south is not the location where the guy's living inside of a fifth wheel inside of the pole barn?
No, there's
Okay,
finished
different guy.
space.
Okay. I'll let the rest of the membership here give their thoughts to this, but I agree with moving away from the planned unit development of this because there's really no owner of the planned unit development now that it's been in place. There's no one to go back to and say, well, you guys aren't doing this and you guys aren't doing this. So I think changing these to the correct zoning classification is something that I'm agreeable to, but I want to do it with the owner's full knowledge of them doing it. And then my next question would that be something where the fees for that rezoning would be waived to them because it would be an action that the county is trying to affect?
Yes, it would be the county's application
Okay.
to rezone it to something that's more appropriate. Michelle and I had a long discussion last week on this,
Okay.
worked on this. And so we just wanted to get your thoughts before we brought it to the landowners in
Okay.
a sense, because if it was something that the board and the planning commission wasn't amenable to at all, then we would have to go back to the major plan unit development.
But we have no one to go to for that anyway, or we always constantly have to have the three landowners in complete agreement to do anything.
Correct, under the plan unit development as it stands now.
And they're not acting as one unit. That's the
Correct.
problem here, right? Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Go ahead, Jim.
Pardon me. So this started out as a 40-acre tract, is owned by one guy,
Correct.
and then he sold two parcels off.
They were platted and sold.
Yeah, and with the understanding that it was going to be a PUD arrangement, that that's the way it was going to be defined. I mean,
Yes.
I'm surprised that these were sold and transactions took place in which nobody said, oh, no, just a minute, what are you planning on doing? Oh, I'm going to put a pole barn up here. But, oh, no, this isn't part of the deal. I mean, it seemed, was it just a kind of a, sort of a combination of, poor choices and bad information or something? I just curious how this occurred to
Sure.
get in this situation. 'Cause
Well, there
it's-
was two separate platting jurisdictions. The first was platted through the city of Box Elder,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
and then the second was platted through the city of Rapid City. So would they just look at the underlying zoning district? They looked at it, if they even, I'm not sure if they asked. I didn't see the staff reports for these plats.
Also, Michelle Hoffman, State's Attorney's Office, when it comes to platting, there's certain requirements by statute, and that's simply, have you paid your taxes? Do the roads kind of fall in line with existing jurisdictions? And are you in compliance with current subdivision regulations? So the platting process, if it doesn't involve Pennington County, you could see how this could easily not be addressed.
I always think that's a source of endless confusion. You know, this is within Rapid City planning, this is within Box Elder, this is within Pennington County, and it seems, I mean, I'm not surprised that there may have been a genuine mistake made, an oversight by the part of the guy who sold it, who honestly didn't know, but it seems unfortunate that these overlapping jurisdictions can lead to this, but anyway, that answers my question, I guess.
Chairman?
Go ahead.
So I read on here that Mr. Anderson said he has no intent in making any required changes. Did he say why? Did he give any kind of reason, or he says he's not doing it?
I didn't speak to him personally. That was just notes that were in the file and from other staff members that had spoke to him.
So let's say that Mr. Chairman, if I can continue.
Go ahead.
Let's say he's interested in keeping it a PUD. Obviously, he's not going to bring it into, up to date with what needs to be done. And we change it on him, or we at least move forward to change it on him. How does that going to look? How is that going to unfold? And it's probably more a legal question to Michelle, but, is it something we can do pretty easy as long as we do all the notifications and things of that nature? Or is there going to be any recourse, or how does that work?
There has to be noticed public hearings, and it would be a legislative action by the board in terms of rezoning. And the rezoning that's being recommended would be consistent with surrounding land uses. And as far as the current uses, their current uses are essentially grandfathered in. What that means is they won't be able to expand any non-conforming use, but they'll be able to continue to use their property as they currently are using. And in some instances, if there's an expansion that they desire, they might need to come in and get a conditional use permit. But again, then we actually have the ability to impose conditions that we can enforce.
I was going to say then, Mr. Chairman, if I
Go
can
ahead.
continue. So then that means for those building permits that were never done, we can then go in and say, now you have to.
They're going to be required to, at the very least, even though the use is grandfathered in, they'll have to get their building permits.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
I tend to agree with commissioners on this board so far. I look back on this, the PUD was 2002, which is, someone's totally 17 years ago, and what's actually happening now has drastically changed. And I think staff is on track with doing away with the PUD, and so I'm in support with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we have a few things going on here. One is that there's conditions of the PUD that he hasn't met simply because they are probably going to take a lot of work and money. There's also conditions of the PUD that the landowner cannot meet because he won't be able to tap into Box Elder water system due to a moratorium. So there'd have to either be significant changes to the planned unit development, or we need to change this to the correct zoning classification. So my last question is, I guess do you need a vote of the commission here to give you direction on where to go? Is that what kind of positive action you're looking for today, or?
Yes, we're looking for a recommendation that you could either concur with staff's recommendation to move forward and contact them in rezoning this to a appropriate zoning district.
Okay, well, personally, I agree with staff's recommendation on this issue, but I will open it back up for further discussion if there's any. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we go along with the staff's recommendation. Does the motion need to be longer than that?
I don't believe so.
I was going to, if you don't mind me asking, do we need to suggest whether we're going to do suburban or limited agriculture or suburban residential in the motion, or it's just in general to figure out what's the best course of action to move?
Just a general recommendation that staff move forward in terms of examining the rezoning, and then we'll reach out to the property owners, and ultimately if even this property is rezoned, that will be ultimately up to the board.
So in my mind, where we're making a recommendation to say, staff, yes, we agree with this. They're going to go do this, meet with the landowners, gain concurrence, and come back to us for approval for the zoning changes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Gotcha.
Sounds good.
So there's a motion on the floor. I still need a second.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion on item 7.
Just out of curiosity, and I may have missed this, and so, bear with me. There's audience members. Did we ask for audience input? I
We
remember
did
us all start
not.
talking about it.
Thank
I'm
you.
just,
Thank
I'm
you
just saying,
for
I
the-
realized we were all talking about it, and I was like, I just don't remember, but I could have been asleep.
Thank you for the pause button. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none. Thank you very much for
No worries.
for the pause button. Sometimes I need that. So there's a motion and a second for approving the recommendation for staff on item number 7. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Brings us to construction permit agenda item 8.
Cody Stack, Environmental Planner. The following items have been placed on the construction permit agenda to be heard for public comment and will not be voted on by the Planning Commission. Any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member may make a comment on any of the items. Comments received will be considered by the planning director who will make the final decision in the construction permit.
Thank you. Are there any questions on item number 8? Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on item number 8? Okay. Moving on to item number 9.
Item number 9 is a county board report. The Board of Commissioners will hear the Planning Commission's recommendations from the December 2nd, 2019 Planning Commission meeting at their Tuesday, December 17th Board of Commissioners meeting.
Thank you. Item 10.
Item 10, items from the public. I guess there should be items from staff.
Yeah, it should be items from staff. So item number 10 and item number 11 are backwards. So let's, I need to go backwards to change the agenda. Let's keep item number 10 as items from the public. And seeing that there's no items from the public, sir, do you have any items to discuss today? Seeing none, we'll consider those under item number 11. Item number 11.
Item number 11 is items from staff. Item A is the building permit report. You should have got a copy of the building permit report. It looks like there was about 5 single-family residences issued in the last month. A cell tower, and some residential additions.
Question, at the end of the year, will there be a summary one for all of 2019?
Yes,
Okay, so will that be at the first meeting in January?
yes.
Okay. Questions on that? Seeing none, letter B.
B is the comprehensive plan view to 2040. We had our first hearing in front of the Board of Commissioners 2 Wednesdays ago. We have another hearing this Wednesday on the 18th. There were some comments that were made, some changes and some additions to portions, just in some of the language about adding some more information regarding some of the amenities in the hills, the hunting, fishing, biking, Mickelson Trail, things like that. There was also comments made to change the Rhapsody Regional Hospital to Monument. And then there was some discussion regarding plan unit developments. So that kind of brought into this one where Michelle and I worked and looked at the plan unit developments and are looking at following the recommendation from the consultant and not having them as a zoning district, but allowing the zoning districts that exist to continue to exist. And then any future plan unit developments would be done as more of an overlay where instead of multiple conditional use permits, they could do like a plan unit development or a plan development overlay. Because that seems to be in instances where instead of someone having 2 or 3 CUPs on one property, a plan unit development might be more appropriate. And it'll be easier for staff and for the commissions to follow those things instead of multiple conditions under multiple permits. So that's going to be staff's proposal during the Wednesday comprehensive plan hearing.
Okay.
Mr.
Questions?
Chairman,
Go ahead, Sandy.
I'm just looking for a yes or no answer. I don't need a lot of dialogue. Did the comments come from the general public, the commissioners, or a combination of both?
The commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Letter C.
Item C is Ordinance Amendment 08-1902, the mining operation. That will be heard tomorrow in front of the Board of Commissioners at the first hearing. There is one change that staff is going to recommend, and that's looking at maybe smaller operations. We've received quite a bit of comment from a smaller operator. It's significantly smaller. So we're looking at those operations that will entail less than 10 acres of land disturbance, because those are pretty small operations, and having a different fee scheme for the smaller. So we're going to propose that to the board tomorrow as staff.
Okay. Any other items?
No,
I have a question.
sure.
Go ahead.
How's our interviewing coming for our new planning director? What's the status?
Our HR director is here, and he could probably speak to that.
Is he going to provide some guidance?
Ken?
Okay, that'd be nice.
And Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I have a question related to that, and that is, these different issues that we've had over the past year, the notifications, the publications in the newspaper, things like that. Is current staff current on what needs to be done whenever it needs to be done?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Staff is working with State's Attorney's Office.
That's John Morrill, HR Director for Pennington County. I was hoping to visit with y'all today anyway, so this is a great opportunity to do so. So the position's been posted locally. It's been posted on what's called governmentjobs.com, which also gives us access to websites all across the country. Applicants through that process was very minimal through last week, Monday. So on Monday, we also partnered with the State of South Dakota Planning Group, and we have it on their website. And then on Friday, we actually contracted with American Planning Association and have it on their website, where they actually work with all those folks that are actually certified to do planning. At this point, again, applications are very few. We're hoping to actually drum up business with that as well as we move forward. So I've been working with the planning team. Brittany is your interim director, and I'm kind of your assistant director, if you will. So if you have questions about operations of the department, please reach out to them or myself, and with any legal issues to Michelle, and we'll make sure that things are being taken care of. We have regular staff meetings. Mondays and Fridays, we do the touch bases to find out what's really going on, and then on Fridays to see how the week has progressed, and then during the week as well to make sure that we're staying on top of all those notices and announcements and other publication requirements that are out there. So, but I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Sandy.
I noticed on the website that you're looking for people to have degrees in planning,
Yes.
and I would imagine that will limit, quite a bit. I didn't know there were degrees in planning. The compensation at, $80,000 a year seems reasonable. But I can imagine the number of people with those types of degrees
Yes. So out of the
there
applicants
can't be
we've
a
had,
lot of them.
there's not been a single applicant with any kind of a planning background or degree, if you will.
Okay.
Not background, I misstated there, but the degrees are out there. It's actually a very driving field, and unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of extras in this area. So we're doing what we can to try to attract applicants to fill that role. You, as a body, would be well served by someone that has a planning degree and or the certifications that go along with that. So the certifications are quite stringent. But they also help make sure that we're in compliance with our own ordinances, with laws and statutes and other things.
Could we contact the universities that offer those degrees
Oh, yes, yes.
for the alumni, or?
Yes, ma'am, you bet.
Okay,
You bet.
thank
No, and any other suggestions you have. So I know it's being recorded, but I did reach out to the city as well. They have a large planning team, and there's word that there's a few on their team that would be possibly interested. So I'm hoping to get some review from that as well.
Thank you.
You bet, thanks.
Further questions?
Yeah, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
The salary, is it
Oh, yeah,
competitive?
so,
Or,
yeah.
I mean, compared to what? Compared to,
Before we actually post anything, I do a lot of research to make sure that we're actually in the ballpark. Salary for a director right now starts anywhere between 69 and 85,000. So at the 79 that we're actually starting, we're on the upper range of that band. You bet. So very competitive as far as salary. It's just the number of people that are available in this area. Maybe limit that. So
right.
Thank
bet.
you.
Great question. Thank you.
Brings us to item number 12, items from the membership. And I guess I'll start off just by saying that I appreciate the staff putting on the luncheon after the last meeting. I know those things are always a thankless job for setting up reminders and nagging people about getting stuff there and those types of things. So thank you very much. Any other items from the membership? Seeing none, brings us to item 13, adjournment. Is there a motion?
Move for adjournment.
Motion?
Second?
Left me hanging there. Motion and second.
A lot of delay.
Motion and second for adjournment.
None of this thing, don't we?
Further discussion. Go ahead, Sandy.
I'm really sorry. Weren't you going to make an amendment to change the approval of the agenda to alter it however or not?
So fair question. Item 10 and item 11 were the titles on those. I left and we acted on those items as they were. The sub-bullet items of item 10, we just moved down to item 11. I don't know if that requires an action of the board or not.
I didn't think so, but
Thank you, though. So we're on item 13, a motion and second. Further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. We're adjourned.
oh.